Hi everybody. Welcome to this video which goes over the APA style. And the first thing you might be wondering is, why do I have to know this? Isn't this kind of unnecessary? And it's my job to try to convince you of the value of APA style. Now you may not agree with me by the time you get to the end of this video, but I'm going to give it my best shot and see if I can give you some good reasons for you to become familiar with using APA style. One of those reasons is that APA style represents the professional, I'm going to call them manners that we use in the education field. They're the way we communicate with other colleagues in education. And they're also the formatting that we use to help us give credit to someone else's work. Now, we have different manners that we use in different settings. So if you go to a museum, you talk quietly, you walk through the museum. That's part of those manners that we expect people to show in that kind of a setting. If you go to a Royals game, it's okay to be loud, to cheer, to laugh, and to wave your arms. And so those expectations are appropriate for that setting. So in an educational writing setting, the expectation is that you use APA style. APA style really is about giving very close attention to the formatting, to the details of that formatting. And knowing what those details are is what sets you up to be successful with using APA style. It's really about showing respect for the work of others. So that's why we're learning APA style. Now you might be wondering too, well, do my students need to know this? Is this something I'm going to apply in my teaching? And the truth of the matter is, you're probably not going to apply this in your teaching unless you are a high school English or social studies or science teacher and you're having your students write some kind of a research report or paper. And every once in a while we have someone in that role who takes this class, but for the most part, you're not going to be teaching APA style to your kindergarten students. So that's not part of the expectation for this. But you can start teaching your students, even at the kindergarten level, how to give credit to someone else for their work. And that's really what is at the heart of APA style. What we're going to work on today, we're just going to focus on how to make a reference list. It's one small part of APA style, and if you can get that down without any mistakes, you are well on your way to being an expert in APA style. As I talk about the aspects of APA style we're going to be using today, I'll talk first about kind of the stair step of where you can go to get help, because it's not expected that you memorize these things. Even people who do all kinds of professional writing have to go to a resource and get some help because it's hard to remember. So the best place to go, the top of the stair step, is to use the APA 6th edition manual. And I showed you the cover of that at the beginning of this video. It's a blue book. It has a spiral binding. And I highly encourage you to purchase a copy of that book, especially if you have several courses to go in your master's degree, because you will encounter this again. And having the book right there to look it up is very handy. You can get used copies that aren't very expensive, but definitely make sure you're getting the blue cover, the 6th edition. Don't buy the 5th edition, even if it's less expensive, because some things have changed and you'll have your formatting will be off if you're using an old edition. Now, let's say you decide not to get the book, but you still want a resource, and that's the second step. The next best thing is to go to a website, and I have a specific one that I recommend. I put the URL at the beginning of this video. It's a site that is published by Purdue University. It's called OWL, Online Writing Library, I think is what it's called. And it's a collection of APA 6th edition formatting rules. And so you can go to that website and look up the information. Now, third step, if you don't have access to those two things, something that I have done, you have to be kind of careful if you do this though. I have gone to a already published journal article and followed that style, but I have to know for sure that that journal uses the APA 6th edition, because not all educational journals use APA. I hate to say that, but that's true. I know that the Reading Teacher, the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy, and the Reading Research Quarterly, they do use APA 6th edition. So I know I can go there, look up something really quick, and double check. So those are 3 places to go to get more information. Of course, you also have access to this awesome video that's going to help you be closer to becoming an expert by the time you get to the end of the video. So let's get started. Now, we're talking about what goes on a reference list. You might have heard this called a bibliography. It typically comes at the end of a paper or a project, but APA actually calls it just references. That references are organized alphabetically by author last name, and they are typed using an inverse indentation, which is just the opposite of how we type a paragraph. So a paragraph, we indent 5 and then we start the paragraph. With APA style for references, we start the reference at the left margin and then we indent the second and third line. You'll see some examples of that. So this is what we're focusing on because this is what I expect you to use in your project, especially your bigger project in this class, but a couple of other activities too, you'll see in the assignment instructions. We're not focusing on how to cite something within the body of a paper or how to cite a quote or statistics. We're just focusing on the reference list for this project. So let's start with the book. That's kind of the easiest one because it's pretty straightforward. So little things make a big difference in APA formatting. So notice how the author's names are written. Last name first, comma, first initial. At the end of the author's names, there is a period, even if there's no middle initial there. There's a period there after that initial. Even if there is a middle initial, there's still a period after that. And then the year is set off in parentheses with a period after that. Periods are really placeholders in APA style. They are a marker that shows where one element ends and the next one begins. Then you see the title of the book. Now, this is the tricky part. Notice that the title is written with only the first word capitalized and the first word after the colon. If there were proper nouns in this title, those would also be capitalized, but other words are not capitalized. And that at first, when I first started using APA style, that went against what I had been taught to capitalize titles. So that is a little tricky for some people. It trips some people up. Also notice that the title is in italics with a period at the end of the title. Then the location of the publisher. Now, typically we include the city and state, but New York is redundant. So with New York, you just have to write it once. But if it were Topeka, it would say Topeka, comma, capital K, capital S, colon. And then it has the name of the publisher with a period at the end of the publisher's name. Okay, article gets a little bit trickier. There are some similarities, but I'll show you here where some things differ. So the author's last name is still written the same way with the first initial of the first name, then a period. The year for an article is still written the same way with parentheses and a period. Now, the title of the article is written with only limited capital letters. So the first letter of that first word, or the first word after a colon, or a proper noun, but the other letters are not capitalized. But notice here, the title of the article doesn't have quotation marks, doesn't have italics, doesn't have anything else setting it apart. At the end of the title of the article is a period, and then comes the name of the journal, the title of the journal. That is written with capital letters. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I'm just following the format. It is confusing. I get that. The title of the journal also is in italics. Now, there's a comma after that title because then you'll see the edition number and the issue number. So the edition number is written as a number, and then the issue number is set in parentheses with a comma after those parentheses. Now, here's a really tiny detailed APA style, and if you can get this down, this will set you apart as being closer to being an APA expert. I told you that the journal title is written in italics. If you notice the 58, the edition is also written in italics, but the issue number and the parentheses around it are not in italics. Again, don't ask me why, but that is the formatting style. So if you pick up on that little detail, that really shows that you're paying attention to those formatting details. After the issue number come the page numbers. And notice those page numbers, they do not have a lowercase p or a PG or a PGS or anything else with them. It's just the numbers of the pages. And then a period at the end to signify the end of the article citation. Now, here's something I want to show you. I'm going to go to where I found this article. I had to go into the ESU library website to get to this article. I had to put in my password and user ID to get to the article. So this article is a print article. It is not available online unless you go through a library. And a library has put up an authentication screen to make sure that you should have access. So there's like a barrier there that only lets people who have the affiliation with the university have that access. So when it comes time to put this article on your reference list, even though I found it online in the library website, I cannot use this URL in my reference list because the article is behind a password protected barrier. So the purpose of the reference list, at least one, is so that when people read your work, and if they're interested, they could go and find what you read and read it for themselves. Well, they can't do that with an article that's password protected. And so they would have to get this article some other way than just to go on the internet and find it. So because of that, you cannot use the URL in your reference list. You have to stick with the print version information. Now, if this were an article that's only available online, then yes, you could list the URL because it's probably not password protected. But when it's available in print, then you have to go with that print information in your reference list. Okay, so now we're going to move on to website. And here we're starting to get into some trickiness with a website. Let me show you the website that I used. I went to, here we go. I went to Wonderopolis and I typed in Prairie. Wonderopolis is a cool website if you're not familiar with it. It's a great one for promoting inquiry. If you sign up, they send you a question of the day. And with the question of the day, you could use that for students to explore further information. So the question number 973 was, what is a prairie? And I got that through my search. And so now I have this little article about prairies. The thing that's tricky with this article is there's no author listed. So when I go to make my reference list for my my listing for what is a prairie, I use the website host when there is no author listed. There also is no date listed for the article in Wonderopolis. So instead of putting the spot where a year would be, I will use N period D period lowercase within parentheses, meaning no date. And then a period after that. Then I'll go ahead and include the title of the article. Notice, again, no capital letters except for the first letter, no italics, no quotation marks, nothing to set off the title. And now I'm going to list the website where I found the article. So now it is appropriate to go up to the URL, copy that, and put that into my reference here. Now, I'm using the phrase retrieved from in front of the URL. Notice retrieved is capitalized, from is not. And that is APA's 6th edition. In the 5th edition, we listed the date that we found that website, but not in the 6th edition. So if a date's used in that reference list for a website, you'll know that it's not the correct edition. And notice there is nothing after the URL. There's no period here at the end, which would trip people up, might change if they copied that URL and tried to enter it, that it might not get them to the right website. So website citation. Okay, just a couple more to go. Blog post citation. You might be wanting to use a blog entry on part of your project, or students may be accessing blog entries as a way to find information. So let me show you where I started. I stayed with this prairie theme, and I went to the Prairie Ecologist. And on the Prairie Ecologist, I do see that there is an author of this blog post, and I do see a date that the blog post was published. So I included here on my PowerPoint, I had gone a few days ago and found this article. So it's not exactly what's on that blog post, but it's the same formatting. So there's the author. And notice how I listed the date here. For a blog post or any other periodical that comes out like every day or every week, you do include the year first, then a comma, then the month and the date, set in parentheses with a period at the end of the date. And then you have the blog post title. Again, only the first word is capitalized. Then after that blog post title, you list the title of the blog itself, the Prairie Ecologist. Now notice, this is kind of like the title of a journal in that the title is capitalized and it's set off in italics. Then there's a period at the end of that blog title, and then you have the URL, retrieved from, and then the URL. Okay, here we go. Just 2 more to go. I know it's a lot to grapple with. Remember, you don't have to memorize all this. So go back to the book, go to the website, come back to this awesome video to help if you're getting confused. So now let's say you want to use a photograph. A lot of times kids want to use photographs in their work. So let's say you go to Google Images, you find a photo, prairie dog. I'm going to pick this one right here. Now, I have the photo here, and I do need to give credit for that photo. But I can't just, let me go back here for just a second. I can't just go up here and grab this URL and put it in my reference list because that's not where the photo lives. I have to go to the home of the photo to give credit for the photo. So I can click here on Visit Page or click on the photo. And so now that takes me to National Geographic for Kids, which is a really good website to use with students. And I have a series of photos here. And so I have to give credit for the photo. Now, I don't have information about who actually took the photo. So I have to, again, use the website host. But if the photographer's name were listed, you would use that in your reference list. It would go right here at the beginning. Last name first, middle initial, period. But I don't have that, so I use the website name. I probably should have put National Geographic for Kids here. And then ND for no date with a period after that. And then I have the title of the photo. And then again, retrieved from. And then I have the URL. Again, no period at the end of that URL. There's no italics in this title. Only the first word is capitalized. All right. Oh, here's our last one. If you want to cite a video, okay, here's where I got my video. Went to YouTube, and I went all the way to the end of the video to figure out who created the video. You don't always get the name, but if you can, that should be the first thing that you use to start your citation. So I have the creator's last name, comma, first initial. I have the date, again, written here because it's considered a periodical. It could come out at any day, so it's written this way. I have the title of the video. Notice North and American are capitalized, but not prairies, because it's not a proper noun or the first name of that title, period at the end. Now here's something new. APA requires that you include the phrase video file set in brackets with a period after that, and then again our retrieved from and our URL. So there you have it. APA style for the types of references that you'll be using in our assignments in our class. A lot of stuff we left out, but hopefully you feel more confident. And again, watch the video again, use the sources that I suggested if you find that you're running into trouble. Also, you can always send me a question. I'm glad to help. Good luck. Thanks. Bye-bye.